So here's Nels again, in a different type of location this time, which I'll pan around and show the viewers in a sec, for another quick video themed on therapy and life skills. But before we get onto that, see if you can guess where we are. Well, for those of you that are familiar with the layout and the colours, it's not a difficult question. But even those that are, you probably won't guess the location. Although you might do if you watched the video before this one from earlier. Because this is actually IKEA, yeah. But it's IKEA Spain. It's IKEA in Malaga. Which, if you've been to IKEAs before, you'll see that it's very much the same layout anyway. It looks the same. It's just a lot of the descriptions are in Spanish and English. The food's a little different. The food's great. If ever you want a massive lamb shank, this is the place to come. The biggest lamb shank you've ever seen in your life. To get down to IKEA Malaga for a lamb shank, that's what I say. But anyway, back to the therapy. So I've got a quick question for you now. What's the quickest way to resolve conflict in a couple, in a relationship situation?
The quickest way to resolve conflict? Well, communication is everything. It's at the core of us, because obviously we are always and forever talking, communicating through body language, non-verbal cues, verbally, with our mannerisms, with everything that we do, we're communicating. So, what makes it tricky for us is again coming back to those four emotions, coming back to fear, anger, sadness and shame. Anger is quite a key part in this, excuse me, in communication, because of the aspect of confrontation. So we tend to fear conflict. As we know, fear is at the root of everything. It is our worst enemy. So how can we communicate effectively without the fear of conflict? The best way of doing that is to communicate immediately with the person that it involves. What often happens is that we have a negative experience with someone, let's say our boyfriend. We will repress it and not say anything because we don't want to evoke an argument or any conflict, and then we'll go and have a good moan to somebody else about what happened later. And that doesn't serve us on several different levels. The main thing is that the way that we communicate effectively is to feel that we've been heard and understood. That's a universal thing for everyone. Ultimately, we all want to be heard and understood through our feelings. So the difference between asserting ourselves and being aggressive. Again, as is often the case, it comes down to the wording. To be very explicit in the wording. And in this case, with communication, it's about understanding the difference between using the word you and using the word I. So an effective way to communicate would be to say, I feel disappointed that you poured yourself a drink and you didn't pour me a drink. I would like it if you could pour me a drink too, please. That would be the most effective way of asserting yourself into your relationship, using your negative emotion as a bit of a connection, and then hopefully having that emotion heard and understood by the other person.
Yeah.
There you're setting a boundary and making it all about you rather than about them. What would be less effective would be to say, oh, you didn't pour me a drink. I feel really frustrated about that. Could you pour me a drink, please? When we talk in the you, it feels more aggressive and attacking to the other person, and they are then much more likely to want to defend themselves. And if they do defend themselves, the chances are they'll ignore your feeling and go straight to how they're feeling or their justification, and then that's what results in the argument.
Right.
So basically it's called boundary setting in the I way. I feel frustrated that you didn't pour me a drink. I would like it if you could pour me a drink, please.
Right. What about when the conflict's already happened? It's over, it's happened, you've gone at each other, you don't see eye to eye, you're both pissed off with each other, and you both disagree with each other. And it's got to a standoff. That might be hours later, that might be the next night, it might be the next 10 minutes, it could be the next day. How do you resolve this once it's happened?
Well, first of all, it's understanding why it happened. And there are several reasons why that might happen.
Yeah, and if I can just chip in, the answer to that will surely be different for each respective party, why it happened.
The formula is always the same. So as I said, we all want to be heard and understood through our negative emotions. First of all, it's important to understand that everyone's experience of their reality is subjective, which means that it's different. And the reason for that is because we all have different histories and different experiences of what's gone on before. And so you can be with your partner having Christmas lunch with the family and have completely different experiences and thoughts and feelings about what went on during that Christmas lunch. What will be frustrating to one person, another person wouldn't feel that frustration. So it's having that basic understanding that what is going on for you isn't necessarily what's going on for the other person. So that makes it difficult to understand the difference. The other thing is getting triggered. So people get triggered by their unconscious, powerful emotions that come straight out, and that causes an over-emotional reaction to an everyday situation. And that needs to be dealt with very differently if someone's triggered. So that's subjective reality, that's triggering, and understanding that our feelings and emotions are also different, and we all feel them in different ways.
Okay. So have you got like a, I don't know, like a 4 or 5 bullet point tools, skill set to use in these moments that couples can very quickly go to as a tool, as a skill to get something back on track?
Yeah, so the first thing is to try to respond to the feeling or the emotion rather than reacting through it. So in other words, you can demonstrate that you're angry without actually having to behave in an angry way or be angry. So dealing with something immediately in the moment with the person concerned,
Yeah.
through your negative emotion, using your I feel frustrated, that you, I would like it if. So keeping your I statements very clear. And then if the other person doesn't hear or acknowledge or understand your emotion, going back and reinforcing that boundary.
Okay.
So saying, look, nevertheless, I'm sharing with you that I feel frustrated and I would like you to hear that.
Right.
So reinforcing the boundary. Understanding also that our feelings and emotions are illogical. So if we are feeling quite strongly, that means that we're not thinking very logically. So if we are feeling strongly, often it's good to take a time out and say, look, you know, I'm feeling quite emotional right now. I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'll come back in 10 minutes and maybe we can talk then. But if you do take a time out, then you always say when you're going to come back,
Yeah.
so that the other person doesn't get triggered with their abandonment issues.
Yeah, sure. So ask yourself the question first, internally. Am I over emotional here? Am I leading with my emotions? Try to remember to ask yourself that question. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, because we're looking for the mindfulness of responding to the feelings and emotions and not reacting through them.
Yeah.
And running off at the mouth and saying things that aren't hurtful, that maybe we don't mean, but then it's difficult to take those things.
Yeah. And is it okay to resolve these types of conflicts where you both just don't see eye to eye, there's a constant disagreement there? Is that okay? Can you resolve this at the end by just not being in agreement, but being each other being okay with that?
Absolutely, and it's understanding that, again, fear is our biggest enemy. And often people fear their differences. We like to feel comforted by the idea that we're very similar to our partners, which feels like we're compatible with them. And so differences, especially differences of opinion, can feel quite frightening and threatening. And it also evokes a feeling of one is right and one is wrong. And so you can start to feel comfortable with the idea that differences are actually quite exciting.
Okay, yeah.
And they're okay.
And I think
they
a lot
can be explored.
a lot of couples struggle with that, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Especially at the beginning of relationships, because you're looking for compatibility.
Yeah.
So you're looking for common interests, common values, likenesses, so that you can feel the same as, but actually it's the differences that keep the excitement and the curiosity alive.
Yeah. And also, what it feels to me often in these situations is what causes these prolonged periods of estrangement, prolonged periods of cold shoulder treatment either way, both ways or whatever, that neither party's prepared to give up ground sort of thing and bow to the other one's opinion, to what the other one's saying or wants. And by both of you accepting that it's okay for you both to have a different view, to have a different opinion, the problem is in the way you discuss it with each other. Then surely that's going to lead to a less of this kind of prolonged Cold War situation, yeah?
Yeah, and it's different views of what might have happened. So if you've been in the pub with your friends playing pool, you're going to have had different experiences and different feelings and emotions and thoughts around those interactions during that evening. So, you know, what might have embarrassed, made someone frustrated or made them angry or ashamed might not be the other one's experience. And so it's valuing and validating each other's experiences and emotions and understanding that they are different.
Sure. Right. Okay. Well, that was pretty useful. hopefully there might be one or two couples that listen to some of those words and can kind of bring that into their own situations, and it might help them next time they have some form of conflict with their partner. So we'll leave it there, and who knows where the next location will be.